You know that feeling when you meet someone whose energy is the complete opposite of yours? Like your sunshine and their moonlight. That's exactly how it was when a fairy first met a werewolf. His world was stormy, hers was light, and she wondered, could the two really belong together? On paper, it makes no sense. But what if that's exactly why it works? Stay with me, because in The Sims 4, this little cottage might just prove that opposites don't just attract, they thrive. And that's the idea that inspired today's build, a cozy little cottage for an unexpected love story. When I discovered the brand new Soothe the Beast interaction in the Enchanted by Nature pack, which allows fairies to gently calm a werewolf's fury and share a moment of trust and magic, I loved imagining that this fairy wanted a home where warmth and comfort could soften even the wildest storms. But can this little cottage really bring two very different worlds together? Well, stay with me to see every cozy corner and hidden nook. And if you love builds like this, you can join the adventure by liking and subscribing before we dive in. Now, first things first, I wanted to explain why Brindleton Bay was the choice. It might seem unexpected with Moonwood Mill and Innis Green right there. Well, for our werewolf, I thought the forested corners in Brindleton Bay might remind him of Moonwood Mill, grounding him in the earth and the rhythms he's learned to expect. For her, the open airy spaces let her wings stretch and her magic breathe freely. And then, of course, there's the pets. Well, not that she's his owner exactly, far from it. But in Brindleton Bay, curious dogs and wandering cats and cheeky squirrels pop up at the most unexpected moments, making this cottage feel alive and joyful and full of laughter. And I just thought this would be the perfect canvas for a home that reflects two very different rhythms, the grounded earthy pull of the werewolf and the light magical dance of the fairy. And I'm so excited for you to join me as we start bringing their story to life. Now, our fairy, she lives in rhythm with the moon. On a full moon, her magic flows effortlessly, like the universe is carrying her, while on a new moon, her energy is stretched thin, her magic is harder to hold. The moon doesn't just guide her abilities, it mirrors her emotions. And she's learned to dance with its rhythms, to accept the ebb and flow of strength and quiet, light and shadow. It shapes her days, her thoughts, and even the way she dreams. One evening at the local fairy tavern, she hears whispers of the werewolves. Creatures also bound to the moon, but in a way that she could hardly imagine. Their connection is wild, raw, and unbridled. She wonders, if the moon can make me soft and strong by turns, what must it feel like to be utterly consumed by it? She doesn't feel pity though. She feels curiosity. She wants to understand the beast side of lunar life, because in their fury and restraint, she sees reflections of her own quiet battles. Where she faces depletion under the new moon, they face overwhelming fire at the full, two mirrors of the same celestial force. Her fascination grows. She visits edges of the forest, listens to stories from other magical beings, follows the scent of moonlight in the night air. Each encounter teaches her more about the rhythm of the wild. And then, one night in the tunnel of Moonwood Mills, she finally meets him, the werewolf. Not a monster, but a soul tempered by loss, longing, and the pull of the moon. And she feels a strange, immediate resonance with him. He looks at her, and for a moment the moonlight catches in his eyes in a way that almost seems to speak. And then he begins to tell her his story. As she listens, she can't help but wonder what wild path, what mistakes and discoveries brought him to these dark, lonely tunnels under Moonwood Mill. But before we wander too far into his past, let's talk a little bit about the build. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm just starting to have some fun mapping out where things can go, what the floor plan could be, how big or small do we want to make each nook and cranny. You've probably seen me use things like columns and spandrels and even platforms to suggest a room without actually dividing it off. And I love this because it keeps everything open and airy, but it still feels cozy and purposeful. And if you've been watching my channel for a little while now, you probably know that I love watching TV shows about interior design and reading articles about interior design and just anything interior design really. And interestingly, this is something that interior designers do a lot in real life as well, creating these cozy spaces without losing the connection to other areas. They are absolute magicians at creating zones with texture or color, or even something as simple as lighting, like a soft lamp tucked in a corner instantly tells you, yes, this is the reading nook, whilst an overhead light might make another part of the space feel more like the gathering area. In The Sims, I think it can work the same way too. You can guide the eye and create a story by layering things, whether it's a different rug or a subtle change in flooring, or even shifting the ceiling height with a platform. I love asking myself, how do I want this space to feel? Is this the spot where people tuck away with a book, or is it where the family gathers with tea? And then you just shape the environment around that feeling. And I know sometimes in The Sims 4, this can feel a little easier said than done, because I completely understand it can feel a little tricky, that our palette of tools can feel pretty limited. Like maybe you want that perfect green sofa, but the swatch is just maybe slightly too minty, or you wish there were more variations of a fireplace without having to use the same one over and over. So sometimes, yes, we do have to get a little bit creative working with what we have and sneaking in the occasional workaround. And you know, I saw someone in my comments the other day talking about how tricky roofing can be in The Sims 4, and oh my goodness, I felt that. Honestly, I think roofing is one of the hardest parts of building, even now. I mean, not to date myself, but I am old enough to remember when the original Sims came out, so I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm definitely still learning. So before anything else, thank you so much for sharing those thoughts with me and with everyone here. Honestly, it's those conversations that make this space feel like a real community, and I'm so grateful for that. Now, I usually keep my roofs pretty simple when I'm building on this channel, just so you all don't have to sit through me suffering for 20 minutes. But today, I actually made it a little more complicated on purpose. I thought today, let's go through the chaos together, and I'll try and talk you through what I'm doing on the off chance that it's at all helpful for you. Now, from what I've noticed, there seem to be two kinds of us roof strugglers. Some people already seem to have a gorgeous idea in their head when they start to build, but then they can't quite make the game behave in the way they want in order to recreate that idea in the game. And then there's people like me who sometimes can't even picture the roof at all. Typically, I'll build the whole house from room to room, like, okay, we'll start in a large hallway, and then there's a dining room off to the left, and maybe there's an office tucked away to the right. And then at the end, I'm staring at this weird bulky shape and I'm thinking, oh no, how do I make that look nice with a roof? So one thing that's really helped me is looking for inspiration before I start. I'll have a look at Pinterest and Rightmove and Zillow, honestly, anything real world, just to spark ideas. I'm not saying that we should use it as a rule book, but more like a springboard. And that way I've got a sense of where I'm heading instead of being surprised at the end. The first thing I'm doing here is using a lot of smaller roof pieces instead of one giant one on this front porch area. It's the best way I've found to stop that annoying clipping and actually create usable spaces inside, because what can sometimes happen is you'll click and drag a roof across the dormers, for example, like I've got at the front here, and it'll look fine to begin with, but then as you continue to build, sometimes at some point along the way, for reasons I'll probably never understand, you'll be able to see those roofs inside the upstairs room. So I'm hoping to avoid that here by using a lot of roof pieces, as you can see I'm doing here, just as a workaround for that problem. And honestly, usually it's a lot easier than I've made it on myself today. But because I was going for all these interesting fairy tale storybook shapes with the roof, it was a little bit harder to jigsaw them together. So that's why you can see me going back and forth, making little tweaks here and there, just to try and coax the different pieces together and encourage them to play nicely, and disguise the fact as much as I could that we have lots of different roof pieces going on here. And then you'll see there's a few little tricks here that I'm using to make it less painful. Like if you hold Shift and C on your keyboard while roofing, you can fine tune the curves of the roof. And that's how I got those soft fairy tale swoops. Or if you hold Alt when you're adjusting the roof, you can make really gentle changes instead of those big chunking jumps that the game wants to do automatically. And despite the inevitable struggle struggle, I was really happy with how it looked in the end. If you have any questions about roofing, or if there's anything you'd like me to try and demonstrate in a future build, just let me know and I'll be more than happy to try and work that into a video in the future for you. So while I'm trying to get this roof right, let's talk about the new Sims 4 base game update for a second, because if you haven't seen this yet, this week they've added some more realistic skin details into the base game, things like wrinkles and age details, stretch marks, rosacea, and I would love to hear what you think about it. For me, honestly, I love it. I have eczema myself, and even though that one isn't included, I feel like it's nice seeing these little details that make our Sims feel more like us. There's something really comforting about seeing those little human details. It feels warmer somehow, like they've lived a life, and you might not have noticed because it was really quick, but in the little sequence I put together at the beginning of this video, the fairy and the werewolf have one of these skin details each because I was just so excited and I couldn't wait to try them out. So the fairy has a new set of freckles. I'll put her up on the screen so you could see it now. And the werewolf, when he's in his human form, he has the rosacea. I also gave him a scar on his face. We'll reveal where he got that later on. But this one isn't one of the new skin details. This one is from the Get Famous pack, I believe. But I'm really curious. I would love to know what you think. Have you tried them out yet? Do you like them? Do you want to see even more details added in? Okay, let's have another look at the build for a second. And for the windows, I used mostly a blend of Enchanted by Nature and Cottage living. Perhaps in this instance, the werewolf windows and doors were a little bit too industrial for what we were going for here, but I thought we could do the same thing with these two packs. The Enchanted by Nature pieces have this really lovely, whimsical, almost fairy tale quality. Lots of curved frames, mossy trims in some cases. And I can just imagine they would let in this gorgeous magical light. And then the cottage living windows balance that with something a little bit sturdier and more grounded. They're still beautiful, but they've also got that charming rustic farmhouse feel. And when you put them together, it doesn't feel mismatched. It feels like two personalities weaving their homes into one. You get this really nice rhythm on the outside of the build where the fairy windows soften the lines and the cottage windows anchor everything, so it looks believable, like this perfect balance of whimsy and tradition that makes the build feel really alive. Now let's drift back into the tunnels under Moonwood Mill, where our fairy sits listening to the werewolf. He tells her how once he was just a wide-eyed human sim with dirt under his nails and wonder in his heart, a lover of nature and a collector who believed that the world still held hidden magic if you looked closely. And when he heard whispers of the Moonwood relics, well, he couldn't resist. The story said that only werewolves could find them all and understand their riddles, but he went searching anyway. The tunnels promised secrets, but along the way, a magical encounter with the wild creatures there changed him forever. From that moment, he was a werewolf, bound to the rhythms of the moon just like the creatures he had sought. His life shifted, and those he loved drifted away. In the quiet ache of loss, he joined the Wild Fangs, a fiery, free-spirited pack. For a while, their energy matched his own, but he soon realized that rage doesn't build a home, and battles can't fill an empty heart. After losing his challenge for Alpha, he returned to the tunnels. This time, something felt different. Perhaps it was the quiet or the memory of who he used to be, but he remembered his first love, the relics, the lore, the wonder. Slowly, he stitched himself back together with purpose, gentleness, and the hope of something better. He learned self-control, how to calm the wildness inside him, how to reach out instead of lash out. He scavenged for the relics not to conquer, but to understand. He became a mentor and an advocate for other wolves like him, wolves who sought to build bridges instead of burn them. And yet, he kept his heart closed, too afraid to let someone in, and too afraid to be left. In that moment, the fairy and the werewolf shared a quiet understanding, a spark of trust and curiosity that hinted at the stories he hadn't yet told. In that moment, they realized the adventure of their worlds coming together had only just begun. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk to you about what I'm doing now. Because you know what's been surprisingly fun with this build? trying to imagine how fairies and werewolves might actually live together in harmony. At first, I was like, this is going to be utter chaos. I have no idea how I'm going to do this. Because while I think the fairies and the werewolves do both share a connection to nature and the moon and animals, they go about it in quite different ways. The fairies are all about these soft mossy greens and sparkling lanterns, little tea corners, while the werewolves, they're a bit more raw and earthy, dare I say untamed. I was thinking maybe darker colors, maybe objects that were a little rougher in texture or a little rougher around the edges. But you know what? When you start layering it together, it kind of works. The Enchanted by Nature pack and the Werewolves pack, some of those pieces look really gorgeous together. The fairies bring a lightness and a whimsy, and the werewolves kind of ground it with strength and warmth. So here, for example, on the outside, you'll see that after a lot of deliberation, I settle on these Enchanted by Nature stones. I love the way the light catches these and allow those gorgeous mossy greens to shine. And I think both of them have this kind of old world rustic charm that's just really gorgeous. And once I found this area where they both overlap and have this common ground, the rest of the build came together with a surprising amount of ease. And then in front of the windows on the front of the cottage, I thought this would be a perfect moment for those werewolf window boxes that we have. I thought maybe he built them and she planted the flowers in there or something like that, like it was a team effort. And again, it just lets both of their personalities shine through. And I really can't wait to show you how we did this on the inside of the house as well. I'm so excited to show you. So my friends, I think now is as good a time as any to name our little cottage. I put together just a few suggestions. We have Moonlight Burrow, Snarl and Sparkle Lodge, Claw and Cobweb Hollow, just to get the imagination flowing. But honestly, I would love to hear what you think as well. What name feels right to you for this fairy and werewolf retreat? Drop your ideas in the comments. I can't wait to hear what you dream up. As you can probably tell, I am loving this idea and this story so much, and I really wanted to convey the harmony of two worlds coming together as one in this little cottage. And I must admit, at this moment, I am struggling a little bit. I went back and forth on what to do with this layout so many times. Because I knew it was going to be so important, like it is for most of us, to have our own space, somewhere we can go to relax, to get away from it all, to find some peace and quiet. But then also, just a breath away, have these wonderful communal spaces where they can enjoy each other's company and laugh and just build on this connection that they've discovered together. And that is the balance I am trying to get right. And guys, I'll be honest, this was a weird one. It was almost like the cottage was too big and not big enough all at one time, particularly this living dining space I'm trying to perfect here. But before we get there, let's return to our story, where the fairy sits with curiosity and patience, ready to see if magic and a little kindness can reach the werewolf's heart. Under the glow of the moon, she noticed how his mood shifted with the lunar rhythm, much like her own fairy magic, which flows and ebbs with the phases of the moon. She didn't try to tame him. Let's be honest, he was never meant to be tamed. But instead, with a spark of her tiny magic, she performed the soothe the beast ritual. In an instant, a calm wave washed over him. His restlessness softened, his fury eased, and a moment of trust and connection shimmered between them. She hovered small and bright, her wings catching the moonlight, reminding him that even the wildest hearts can be met with gentle magic. And though it worked in a flash, the real power was in her presence, her patience, and the warmth she offered with every laugh and whispered story. The wolf smiled, feeling safe enough to share a memory, to listen, and to let his heart open a little. And under that same moon that had shaped both of their rhythms, they discovered something new together. The magic of two very different worlds finding harmony. But even with this first spark of trust, the story wasn't over. There were still secrets to uncover, stories to share, and a heart that had not yet fully opened. And that's where our cozy little cottage comes in. In the end, I went for a smaller living nook in front of the fireplace because I just loved the idea of them each having their own armchair. So a little bit later, you'll see I choose an armchair for them that I think kind of encapsulates their own personality. whilst also working well together. What a perfect mirror for our story, I know. And then having perhaps a larger dining table than we might expect. And I say that because in The Sims 4, our fairies don't need to eat. They don't have a hunger need like our werewolves and a lot of our other Sims do. So they probably actually wouldn't be sharing a meal together very often. That being said, a werewolf's hunger need can decay very quickly. So I thought, yes, they probably do definitely sit here together and enjoy a conversation whilst he's eating. While the fairy, maybe she enjoys sitting in the living room nook. Yes, sometimes with her werewolf, but maybe also with her fairy friends. And they enjoy the glow of the fire, they listen to music through this little record player we've got here. Maybe she's more of a one-on-one kind of person and therefore this space is what's perfect for her. Let me know in the comments section, would you rather live with fairies or with werewolves? And if you lived here, what space do you think you would enjoy the most? I imagine these two, they both love earthy colours, the browns, the greens, the oranges, that keep them grounded even when the moon is wreaking havoc with them. The other thing I loved about this particular lot in Brindleton Bay is even though it is foresty and surrounded by nature, it also doesn't feel isolated. And to me, what that said about our fairy and werewolf couple is that they didn't feel the need to hide. They're very open about their powers and their magic and their struggles, but also they like to share their strength and their story and their success with others as well, as a way to inspire people, particularly in the werewolf community, but certainly in the fairy community as well, as a way to inspire others and show them that things can get better for them. This moment makes me absolutely cringe because you see that plant I put down there, that house plant right in the front. I was really happy with how that looked. I love the green of the plant, works so well with the orange of the curtains and the orange I finally chose for this love seat. But you know what? For some weird reason, when I was playtesting this, having the plant there meant that our Sims could not get up the stairs. They couldn't go on this platform either. And I tried it in a few different spots. I tried wiggling it around a bit just to see if it made a difference, but I could not figure it out. It was such a puzzle. Truly, if you think you know what might have been going on here, I would love your insights. I really would, because it was such a mystery to me. So if you download this house, that plant will not be there because in the end, I chose the path of least resistance and I deleted it. This kitchen was such a good time to decorate and clutter up. I was really pleased with how it came out. I thought maybe this would be more of the werewolf's domain as the lover of food in the family. So I chose this really lovely solid looking cabinetry in this dark wood and I cluttered up the surfaces with all different yummy looking things, some weird looking things too. A book that I thought we could imagine would be a recipe book, so he can reference how to make all his favourite creations. And then I thought, well, maybe our fairy, she's brightened it up a little with these potted plants. Maybe we could pretend they're herbs or something like that, because she does love to be supportive of him and his hobbies. One little comedic moment I did here, I put down the dog treats from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack. I thought maybe if he gets a little grumpy because he's hungry, he can just reach for one of these and mellow himself out. Just on that note, I did try and stick to the base game, the Cats and Dogs pack, the Werewolves pack, the Enchanted by Nature pack, and Cottage Living pack, just to make it a little bit easier for more people to download off the gallery if you want to play here. And I think I did mostly manage it. I was quite impressed with myself, I must say. And then I did also put down a chair because I thought even though our fairy, she probably doesn't have the same love of food as he does, of course. But I bet she does love to be with him, watching him when he's having so much fun in the kitchen and getting all excited about the food he's cooking. It's something that she can't relate to exactly, but maybe she doesn't have to relate to it exactly to be able to enjoy it with him. She can just sit there and watch these lovely moments unfold and be a part of it with him. But I thought this might also be a lovely spot for him to hang out with his wolf friends. Maybe he invites them over periodically. They discuss wolf issues, how they can better themselves as wolves and as individuals, whilst wolfing down a lovely meal that he's cooked for them. And you can see here nice and clearly the two different armchairs I chose for them. I was thinking maybe his would be the one on the left as we're looking at it. There's something very sturdy and reliable about it. And I think he might be a little bit of a rocker. So the studs and the leather, I thought maybe spoke to that a little bit. And then hers is similar, but the shapes are a little bit softer. It's got these nice curved arms and a curved back. It's made of fabric rather than leather. And it makes my heart so happy seeing these two chairs sit here together because while they are different, quite different in some ways, they do also look like they go together strangely in this space. And I just thought they were the perfect metaphor for our fairy and our werewolf. I also gave them a little TV. I don't imagine they watch a lot of TV, but I thought maybe once in a while they like to sit down and enjoy a quiet, low effort moment in front of the fire together. Maybe they like nature documentaries or fantasy storylines about other occult beings like them. And then you'll see here, I'm kind of wondering if I should do something with this space in the middle. It kind of looked empty to me, and that's what I was trying to get at earlier when I was saying the space seemed almost too big and too small all at once. So I was thinking maybe we could have some more seating or a game table. But everything just felt like it would block the flow of the space, like it would be challenging to get around. Because this is the very center of the home, and I imagine they have to pass through this way quite a lot throughout the day. So you wouldn't necessarily want anything big or bulky blocking the space. That was my thought process anyway. So I thought maybe it doesn't need to be anything as practical as that. Maybe it could be something that's purely aesthetic and fun and light-hearted. And so I chose this adorable little statue of this dancer and put it down right in the middle of the room, just as something that could be there for no other reason than to look beautiful. It's only one tile, so it's still small enough to get around easy. I thought in a way it might almost improve the flow of the room because it's circular, so people could drift around it nice and easily, like water around a rock. So with all that being said, I was thinking even magical homes need these practical little touches. So right here, as our fairy and werewolf step inside, there's a spot for their coat, a place for their keys, maybe even a tiny pouch for trinkets or a well-loved leash. And while I think these small details might seem ordinary, I like them because they also tell a story. They show how this is a home that is really lived in, and it kind of works as a gentle hint at who lives here and how they move throughout their days. Even this little picture of an apple tucked here by the door, it's small and it seems ordinary, but it makes you wonder, who left it? Why is it here? And this made me laugh because I think these tiny mysteries make a home feel alive. The mix of everyday routines, favorite spots, and little surprises like this, they all tell a story about who lives here and what their personality is like. As you've probably noticed by now, I did decide to section off a small part of the downstairs as a bathroom, and we do have another one upstairs in the end, which maybe might seem a little bit unnecessary. You know, do we really need 2 bathrooms in a home for just 2 people? But I thought firstly, our werewolves, they are not known for having the strongest bladders. So having a bathroom close might not just be a convenience, but it might be a necessity at some time. And also, I thought our fairy and our werewolf would just love having a guest bathroom, separate from their own private space. I just thought it would be a small, thoughtful detail that I could include for them to make their home feel really welcoming. After all, a fairy and a werewolf's private bathrooms are like little sanctuaries, while the guest bathroom, meanwhile, is going to be ready for visitors, somewhere you can keep tidy and inviting, yet full of these small whimsical touches, like the Enchanted by Nature sink and the Enchanted by Nature mirror. I thought works really well in this space, along with these nice green walls. So yeah, it's a simple touch, and you could of course change it for a small nursery if you wanted your Sims to have a baby one day, something like that, because they do have the separate space upstairs. But just for now, I thought that second bathroom would just be very nice. When I created this little bump out off to the left of the house as you're looking at it from the front, I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do with that space. At first, maybe I thought that could be the bathroom, or maybe it could be a fairy reading nook, or a tiny computer room or study. But when I started putting things down in the kitchen, I thought a little pantry would be the perfect addition to this house, because the kitchen, whilst adorable, is not the largest of spaces. And so having this other space just allowed us to spread out a little bit. It gave us a dedicated room for those bulky items like the fridge, and I also put down a tea maker and a coffee maker in here as well. And I thought we imagined that the pantry cupboards were just full of food for our werewolf to cook with. Maybe produce that they've grown together in their garden, we'll get to that later. But you might have noticed there is a ladder leading down to a basement level, because every werewolf needs their own space. So this basement I'm describing as his own personal moon retreat. I thought it'd be really important for him to have a place where he can channel his energy and explore his wolf instincts safely. So here he has this little moonlight retreat tucked under the cottage, this cozy basement where he can safely channel his wolf instincts during a full moon. I didn't want this story to be about the wolf being dangerous or needing someone to manage him. So I wanted to create this space where he could practice self-control and explore his wolf nature and transform without any worry, knowing he's keeping both himself and everyone he loves and everything in his house safe. So I didn't want this to feel like a dungeon. This is a really cozy area where he can explore his wolf instincts during the full moon. And I thought during these times, our fairy, maybe she sometimes visits, she offers a touch of magic or a calming spell, but most of the time it's his own sanctuary. So you see, I softened the floor with a rug so it doesn't feel too harsh or cold. I choose a door with bars rather than one that's solid so that he can look out and he doesn't feel too trapped. And I also created this little skylight so he can see outside, he can see the moon. I gave him some junk because I thought it might be funny to imagine that he has something that he can smash up if he really needs to. I've heard about these, I think they're called rec rooms, which are places you can go in real life and just smash things up. I just thought that sounded so much fun. I would love to do that one day. Have you ever done something like that, or would you like to do something like that? But I thought maybe we could pretend that this was kind of like his own private rec room where he just brings junk and things that people have discarded and just goes to town when he's having a moment. I do eventually put some newspaper down in here as well because, as we discussed, werewolves are known for having quite leaky bladders, so I thought that might be a necessity. And then I also cracked myself up by putting down some of the dog toys from the cats and dogs pack as well, for those moments when maybe he's still angry but he's also a little bit playful as well. And then in this other section I put down what I thought might be some of his favorite things, his exercise equipment where he can burn off energy, some werewolf pictures and posters, some nice things for him to look at when he's down here. And then I just thought, how funny would it be to put down these little footprints from the cats and dogs pack leading into his little lair here. I thought it'd be really nice if maybe they're at the point now where they can find some lightness and some humor around their journey. Like, it doesn't have to be this big heavy thing. It's just part of their story and they can make it their own in this way. I also gave him some music down here and a place where he can put all the relics he's going to find in the tunnels and around Moonwood Mill. And yeah, even though I thought this might be one of the more challenging areas to decorate because Werewolf Basement doesn't exactly scream charming cottage, the vibes are very different. In the end, I was really pleased how this all came together while still managing to keep the vibes of the upstairs. It doesn't feel too disjointed and I really like that. I love how their bedroom is tucked away like a little secret sanctuary, a space that's just for them. It is honestly so warm and inviting, and I tried to fill it with really soft textures and gentle lighting and these little personal touches that reflect their personalities. I thought here the fairy and the werewolf can slow down and rest and fully feel safe, like they have a place to unwind away from the world outside. So I made it this dark brown color, which might seem quite surprising. This room doesn't bring in the most natural light out of all the spaces in the house, but to me this color just feels like a cozy hug, which, like I was saying, that's everything I was going for. I used wall sconces around the bed instead of table lighting because I think it creates a really warm ambient glow. I really enjoyed the symmetry we're creating here in this little space. It just really pleased me. And I know in the rest of the cottage things are a little bit more asymmetrical, off-center, higgledy-piggledy to give those real cottagecore vibes. So to me, it was nice to find this moment of perfect balance here just to contrast with that a little bit. I also made myself giggle by including this picture of dogs behind their bed. I gave them another little fireside nook up here where they could sit and relax because, to be honest, you can never have too many of those, can you? And this one I really liked just because of privacy and the quietness that it offered. If ever our fairy or our werewolf needed a moment to just retreat and be quiet, I thought this would be a lovely space to do that. And I made this little dormer bump out into a little dressing area for them. Eventually I do come back and I put a little curtain across it just to separate it off and signal that this is a separate area, this is the dressing area. And I thought the curtains were really lovely as well because they offer another layer of softness and texture to the space. And then I forgot that we have these little half moon lights from the werewolf pack, and I put two of them down on this dresser, kind of framing this Enchanted by Nature little book collection we have here. I loved how these pieces work together to create magic and whimsy and joy and playfulness as well. Because I didn't want this room to feel, despite its coziness, I didn't want it to feel too heavy or serious. I still wanted to maintain that element of play that I think this couple has. And then this second bathroom, this was the other area where I had a little bit of trouble when I was playtesting. Because how I have it right now, they couldn't quite get around the sink to use the bath. I should have known that really, but in the moment I forgot about it. So I just had to move the sink out a little bit to give them space to get around, and then it was fine, which was a relief because I didn't really want to have to rejig the whole thing. I really liked how this bathroom came together. It's quite similar in style and uses a lot of the same pieces that the downstairs bathroom uses, because I thought that might be a quite nice way to tie everything together to have that consistency. But one little touch that I loved in here, I gave them both their own dressing gown. I could just imagine them putting these on at the end of the day and going downstairs and spending a little time curled up in front of the fire, all cozy, just catching up on what they've been doing, what their plans are for tomorrow, how they're feeling, just checking in with each other. So yeah, I thought these were a lovely little piece of storytelling hanging on the wall, and the colors matched the colors of the wallpaper so nicely. I was really pleased with that. Since we got the new glass wallpaper update added to the base game, I've been seeing a lot of creators on YouTube making houses entirely with glass walls, and I love watching these videos. People are just so creative, it always blows my mind, and I haven't quite been brave enough to do an entire glass house, but I thought maybe I'd ease into it by creating a greenhouse entirely with the glass wallpapers and the glass roofs as well, and just seeing what I could do. And I didn't really have a clear image in my mind for how I wanted this to turn out, which was nice in this case because it let me just play and have fun without any pressure of trying to create something specific. I was just seeing what can I do and what would be possible. And it felt important to me because the werewolf had his own very specific area in the basement, that our fairy also had her own dedicated area as well. Not that they can't join each other in their areas, but I just thought it'd be really nice if she also had a space that felt very her. And I was smiling to myself the whole time I was creating this because I was thinking she absolutely loves this greenhouse. This warm, sunlit sanctuary tucked right behind the cottage. I wanted this to be a place where she could nurture her plants and herbs and flowers. She could tend to each one with care in her own special magical way. And that got me thinking, maybe this isn't just a space about growing things, but it's a place for creativity and quiet reflection and practicing mindfulness. Maybe sometimes she comes out here and she simply sits amongst the leaves, and it helps her feel grounded and connected to the rhythms of nature. And maybe through doing that, she feels a little more in tune with herself as well. So we're going to return to our greenhouse shortly, and I can't wait to show you how we'll turn this cozy little sanctuary into the magical lived-in space I've been imagining and that we've just been talking about. But now you'll see I've moved on temporarily, and I'm just trying to map out the outside. I rejigged the house and the greenhouse and the little paths a few times to get it in such a way that it just felt really settled and meant to be and natural and organic. I love these little wibbly wobbly paths. I really do. It made me think of my Nana and Granddad's house from when I was little. They had paths going all the way around their little bungalow and flowers absolutely everywhere. They really did have the most beautiful garden. And here and there, they would just have little stepping stones or little pathways going from the main path, jutting out into the flowers. And sometimes they would lead to nowhere, and sometimes they'd double back on themselves. But it was just so much fun. As a child, it really gave me this amazing sense of wonder. And that's what I was trying to channel here as well. These paths aren't about getting from A to B in the most direct manner. They're about giving you the opportunity to enjoy the journey and the time to take in everything that's around you. Some of these paths do also lead to nowhere, and that's okay, because to me, I think that's where the fun and the magic really live. One thing that really surprised me when I was putting down the plants and doing the landscaping was when my husband came over to me and he made the comment that he thinks that landscaping is one of the things that I'm best at doing in The Sims. And even now, saying that, it still shocks me because I thought, honestly, it was one of the things that I was worst at, or one of the things that I find most difficult to make look natural and correct. But I think one thing that has maybe helped me feel more confident is choosing just a small number of plants to work with. maybe plants that are of similar colors or colors that work well together, or maybe they're from the same pack, so they have similar vibes, or you would naturally find them in certain worlds in The Sims 4. Just honing in on a small group, I think, is really helpful in creating a kind of consistent but still natural look. So you can see that's what I've done here. I'm really working with quite a small number of plants, but I'm just muddling them all in together to create this wild and natural and fun garden for our fairy and our werewolf. And for me, as someone who's not very confident about this just helps when I'm designing gardens. It's kind of like it's one less thing to think about and one less thing to worry about, and it makes it more relaxing as well, at least for me. The other comment my husband made was that almost all of my builds have to have a lake, and I think that's probably true. I do love a lake in The Sims 4. This one though, this is one of the smallest lakes I've ever done. I'd kind of unintentionally set the parameters for myself when I was doing the paths and the flowers. So if I was going to do it, it had to kind of nestle into this little space, and that was a fun challenge. And you'll see me going back and forth with the terrain tool quite a lot to try and get it to look quote unquote right, or at least how I wanted it in my head. And then one thing I don't usually do, but I decided to do today, was to include some of these lovely orange and yellow wildflowers that you'll see we put all around the lot here, to also include those in the lake. I don't often do this. I usually stick to the specific pond items, but I think by branching out a little bit here, it worked really well because it just tied it all together so nicely. I think the other thing that helps a lot when I'm landscaping is trying to create different spaces, different areas, because even on a small lot like this is a 20 by 30 lot, even on a relatively small lot, it can feel daunting when there's quite a lot of empty space to fill up. And one thing that's just helpful mentally, at least for me, is to break it up into little sections and then find a fun way to tie those sections together. So we're going to have the house, we're going to have the greenhouse, we're going to have the lake, we're going to have a little hangout area, we're going to have an area to watch the moon with a telescope, we're going to have an area for the wolf sundial. And by the time you've added all of that in, it breaks it down into manageable chunks and consequently fills up the space really nicely. So whilst I was creating this lovely little garden, I loved thinking about how the fairy and werewolf might use this space in their daily lives. The werewolf, he might enjoy the open areas to stretch under the moonlight, or a little hidden nook for quiet reflection. I also imagine he's probably really going to love grilling on the grill I'm going to put down. While the fairy, maybe she enjoys tending to her plants, or exploring her little fairy house, or making friends with the rabbits. So that's what they'd enjoy, but here's a little thought for you. If you could add one magical or cozy touch to this garden, what would it be? I would absolutely love to hear your ideas in the comments. You'll see I did put down a couple of werewolf bushes just in case he's out here grilling or something, having a lovely time, and maybe he needs to go but he can't make it all the way inside. He's got a couple of options here as well. And then this patch at the back, this is where we're going to have their little kind of picnic grill spot. I love how it's tucked away just off from the rest of the garden. A lovely little cozy spot for meals and gatherings of werewolves. It's practical, of course. It's not too fussy. It's perfect for cooking up a simple dinner. But I also tried to design it with warmth in mind, surrounding it completely with trees and flowers and nature. So it's somewhere that our fairy really wants to be as well. And I think even in a magical home, having a small intentional space for cooking and gathering like this makes the outdoors feel like a natural extension of the cottage, another place for comfort and community and the gentle everyday magic that we can all enjoy. I am not exaggerating when I say that this greenhouse turned out to be one of my favorite areas of the whole build, which is quite surprising when it's also one of the areas that I had the least clarity about when I went into building it. And like I say, it was just such a joy to think about how this little space could be both practical and magical. It is about the plants, of course, but it's not just about growing plants. It's also a sanctuary where the little fairy, she can experiment and create and nurture life at her own pace. I tried to clutter it up as much as I could while still keeping it functional and playable as well. And one of my favorite little touches, that little book you might have seen there at the end that I put down on the side table next to the chair, that's a little book about gardening. So I love the thought that she's, even though she's a fairy and she's magical, she still loves to learn and grow and develop her skills as well in this quiet little sanctuary. One of my favorite little tricks, especially in magical builds, is to use those kind of circular floor lights that we have for the outside, kind of hiding those in the plants So you can't actually see them, but they give the plants this kind of iridescent glow at nighttime, and they can make almost any outdoor space look magical and enchanted. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going around and lighting up the different flower beds. It honestly is a really effective and easy way to light up an outdoor space at night. Not quite so easy was putting these Enchanted by Nature lights on the pond. I thought they kind of looked like they're sitting not quite on lily pads, but maybe something a little bit similar. So I thought I'd try and get them to look like they're floating in the lake. But that last one, that third one there, just did not want to sit nicely on the water. So I fiddle around with it quite some time. I won't make you watch the whole thing. I'll skip to the end now just so you can see what it looks like. I did eventually get it down there. But I'm glad I persevered because I do love how they all look sitting on the water like that. Again, that's something I don't usually do when I'm decorating ponds and lakes, so I like that I pushed the boundaries a little bit here and stepped outside of my comfort zone and did something a little bit different. So as our fairy and our wolf spent time together, they discovered a quiet joy in each other's presence. She brought light and magic, and he brought grounding and wonder, and together they kept each other rooted while helping each other soar. Their shared love of nature shaped their dreams, a cozy cottage nestled in the wood where moonlight danced on the floors and laughter and warmth filled every corner, and it became a home that reflected both of them. Wild yet gentle, grounded and yet free. And so, hand in hand, they began the next chapter of their story, building not just a house, but a home where their worlds could grow together. If you like this build and you think you might like to play here too, I'm going to put it on the gallery. I'll call it Where Fairy Cottage, and you can also find all my builds by searching for the hashtag SimsBuildsChill. If you loved building this fairy werewolf cottage with me today, check out this next enchanted build right here.